This is my story of taking on La Marmotte, one of the toughest Granfondo events of the year, on a course with over 5,000 meters of climbing over some of the most famous roads in the Alps. I attacked from the first climb and ended up having one of my toughest days I've ever had on the bike. A few days before the Fondo, I took the train out from where I live in Nice to Grenoble and rode just the short distance to where I'd be staying in Alpes, 10 kilometers from the base of Alpe d'Huez. I decided to race the Hillclimb up Alpe d'Huez 2 days before the Granfondo. This is another event as part of La Marmotte to kick off a long weekend of suffering. The race started in the late afternoon with brutal temperatures over 30 degrees at the base of Alpe d'Huez. My goal for this event was mainly to do my best possible time on the Strava verified Alpe d'Huez segment, so I wasn't too worried about starting a little bit far back. I did show up not super early to the start, so I was behind quite a lot of people, and it got a little bit hectic here on the lower slopes trying to get past so I could get to the front. Once I got up here to the front, I just settled in at my own pace and tried to not look back and not worried about what anyone else was doing. I think I was pretty quickly on my own here. I definitely was going a little bit too hard, but the bottom slopes of Alpe d'Huez are actually the steepest, so in some ways this is the right way to pace it, but I could pretty quickly tell that this was not going to be my day. I did the first 10 minutes of the climb at 407 watts or 5.9 watts per kilo, which was about the pace that I was hoping to be able to hold the whole way up, because that would have been right around the KOM pace. But I could pretty quickly tell that that just was not happening today. My head unit was actually measuring over 40 degrees Celsius at the bottom of the climb, baking in the sun. It's not quite accurate to the actual air temperature, but I completely overheated in that first 10 minutes, and I had to just reset for the rest of the climb. I did 360 watts for the next 28 minutes to get to the top, which was just a sustainable pace that I knew I could at least make it, and I wasn't going to completely die out there. The hill climb course was pretty much just the Strava segment, except we had that flat bit on the run-in, and then right here is actually where the Strava segment ends, so I had 3901, 373 watts average, and for some context, that's about 20 seconds slower than what Tom Pidcock did when he won the Tour de France stage here in 2022. So it was an alright time, but it's quite a long way off of the KOM. KOM's just under 36 minutes, and that's what I was aiming for. And then after the Strava segment, we had this little run-in through the town with a tunnel and some roundabouts to go to the Granfondo finish. This is the same as what we'd be doing in 2 days. And I got to post up for the win there, which is pretty cool.
Bravo! You're strong!
Bravo. Brutal effort out there, just way too hot at the bottom. Overheated in like the first 5-10 minutes, and then just suffering the whole way up. Started to feel a little bit better towards the top once it got a little bit cooler in the clouds and higher elevation, but just not the day for it. I took the day in between the hill climb and the Fondo easy, just did a short spin. Now it's already time to get ready for another full gas effort in the Alps. This is the bike for the day. It's 5.8 kilos. This is mainly thanks to the new Panda Podium Arcaris 8848 wheels. They're crazy light, as the name suggests, 884.8 grams. Thanks to Joe at Panda Podium for sending those out, and it's just a small part of what's going to be a whole new bike build that'll be on the channel soon. I had a short ride over to the bottom of Alpe d'Huez in Le Bourg de Oison, where the start is. You can see I'm lined up right at the back of the grid here. Showed up just before the start, but not to worry, we have a little flat run-in before the first climb of the day, the Col de Glandon. So I was trying to work my way through the group at this point and not use too much energy, but I definitely wanted to be right near the front before this climb started, because it's a really steep one. It's the same starting section as the Croix de Fer, but then you branch off for the Croix de Fer to do a short, flatter section near the top. We had our starting little climb through this dam, which it was really blocked up here. I was just trying to get through any gap I could.
Been working just trying to get to the front. Ed Laverack, ladies and gentlemen. YouTube celebrity.
I'd actually messaged Ed the night before to let him know that I was planning to attack on this first climb if he wanted to come along. He wisely chose to avoid that strategy and just let me go. So he was hanging out there in the back and trying to do his own pace, but I was just surging trying to get to the front so I could do my attack. It took me like, I think the first 5 minutes of this climb just to manage to squeeze my way through and find the front. But once I got there, I just immediately hit it. and I couldn't really get separation at first. I was a little bit surprised, honestly, that anyone wanted to follow me at this pace, because we're on the first climb of a 5,000 meter plus climbing day, and I'm going like over 6 watts per kilo on these steep ramps. But I don't know, I guess other people thought they were also going to be just lighting it up at the front there. I knew that this probably was not going to be the best strategy for me, but there was a little bit to hope for here because the first descent after this climb was neutralized. So I knew that if I could carry a small gap to the top of this climb, that would mean that I'd be able to just stay in the group and theoretically have an advantage over anyone I was with. But I didn't really count on the team tactics coming into play here. You can see this Material Velo team is absolutely enormous. They have like, I think 6 guys in a group of 10 at the front at this point, which is crazy. I've never seen something like this in a Granfondo. Ed talked about this in his video on the event, but these events are definitely becoming much more professionalized and like real road racing. They have these big, well-funded teams with support on the side of the road. It's basically just becoming more like road racing, which is fine. I mean, it's not against the rules, it's what's happening, but it was definitely a little bit playing against my attacking tactics, as they could just work as a team to try to shut me down and neutralize me. But I just kept attacking. I don't know, I was just really going for it here. I throwing all caution to the wind, attacking like crazy. Now we're on a little flat section before we get to the final rise, and just after we do this little descent, I hit them with another attack, and they're still following me. This is just a few guys. I'm realizing this only now as I'm editing, but with the bib numbers from those 2 guys, those are the 2 that ended up finishing first and second in the event. So clearly they were actually on a good day, whereas I was just full sending it with absolute disregard for what was going to happen later. But it makes sense that they were able to follow me now, knowing that they were the 2 strongest guys in the race. But this is the top of Col de Glandon here. Pretty beautiful view, and there's an aid station where I'm going to stop to refill my water. These other guys that are racing at the front, they have supporters standing on the side of the road handing them stuff, so they don't really need to stop, but I definitely needed to because this was the only possibility for a neutralized stop on the course. Since the descent was neutralized, the timing stopped just as we went over the top, so I was able to take my time, grab water, and then start rolling down the descent. I understand why they neutralized this one because it was quite sketchy coming down, and I definitely was happy that we were not racing down it, but in the end it just became kind of a weird tactical game because I got to the bottom here and I saw a few people waiting, but I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, and I decided to just keep going on my own. I thought that, well, I might as well keep trying to do something different than what everyone else is doing, and I knew that my advantage would be a bit better on these flatter, like false flat drags to the bottom of the next climb. But what I didn't really consider is that, well, there was that massive team, so of course they're just going to chase me down with their numbers, and there's always going to be someone willing to chase. This is the stats for that valley segment, so it's 30 minutes at 310 watts, which doesn't sound like that much, but when it's going to be part of like a 5 to 6 hour day, that's still quite a lot of energy that I'm expending that those guys in the back aren't necessarily. And now we're getting into the bottom of the Col de Télégraphe. This is a combination climb, so we have the Télégraphe and then the Galibier. These climbs are almost always ridden in sequence, and that's how the Tour de France normally does it. The Télégraphe isn't too bad, like a less than 40-minute effort and not crazy steep, but then once you add in the Galibier, it gets to a really long effort, and this is even for the KOM over an hour for Tadej in the 2022 Tour de France. I could see from the bottom of the Télégraphe that I had these 2 Material Velo guys coming up behind me. They ended up catching me here just before the top of the climb, and I had to hang on for dear life as they accelerated for the final few minutes. I think they rode together as a team through the valley, and looking back with hindsight now on Strava, it seems like the guy who ended up winning actually was in a different, smaller group of 3 and ended up going faster than both me and the Material Velo team, who went around 30 minutes. He was about a minute faster, so it's a bit hard to know what was going on at the time because obviously there's no one telling me. I was definitely struggling here, but I kind of expected that to be the case after all the attacking I had done early on, and I figured these guys would be struggling too, but I was not prepared for what was about to happen. We're reaching the top of the Télégraphe now, and then we have a short descent before we start the Galibier. You can see my heart rate's back up into the mid 170s, which is about as high as it can get for me. I could tell that I was starting to feel really cooked at this point, and it's where my suboptimal preparation for this event came back to bite me. I had a crazy ambitious goal for this trip, which was to take the KOM on Alpe d'Huez, and I knew that I'd have to take myself to a whole new level if I was going to do that, so I was experimenting with some new things in my training, but it seems like they really didn't work out because at this point in the day, I was absolutely cooked. My legs exploded near the top of this climb. I just managed to hang on to these guys with 347 watts average for that climb on the Télégraphe, but now we were heading down the descent to start the Galibier, and I knew that I was going to be struggling. In the lead up to this event, I'd been experimenting with an altitude generator so I could sleep at 2,000 meters in my bedroom, and also hitting a pretty aggressive calorie deficit to get down to 68 kilos, 2 kilos lighter than I normally am. But I completely overdid it. I ended up having to take a bunch of extra rest before this trip just to feel like I could move, and then on Alpe d'Huez, at least I was fresh, but now on the Galibier, I was completely done. These guys were riding away from me, and I was afraid I wasn't even going to be able to hold zone 2 power at this point.
Oh, I should not have gone so crazy on the attacks. My legs are completely blown. Just gonna try to survive to the finish. Gotta try to keep it zone 2. Otherwise, I'm not gonna make it. That was fun though.
I was definitely not having too much fun now as we're getting to the top of the Galibier, over 2,000 meters, and I was blown. There's Ed coming past me. He gave me a few words of encouragement, which was nice. But near the top of this climb, I was struggling just to keep my power over 200 watts, and I felt like I was barely moving. I ended up only averaging 232 watts and over an hour on the Galibier. At this point, I wasn't sure if I was even going to make it to the finish. I took a long stop at the top of the Galibier. I ate some food and drank a bunch of water, but honestly, that wasn't even it. It wasn't the nutrition. I was just mentally and physically spent up here. I really wasn't sure if I was even going to go to the finish at this point, and I just sat there thinking about what I had done for a while. I eventually started moving, and I went down the descent towards Alpe d'Huez. My accommodation was just near the bottom of Alpe d'Huez, so I knew that if I wanted to, I could just pull the plug and go straight home for a shower and a lie down. That was so tempting, but I really wanted to finish the event, and I got onto Alpe d'Huez. I had recovered a little bit mentally and physically on that descent, so I could at least hold zone 2, but definitely nothing more. It was still fun climbing, getting to experience the suffering and the brutal heat with everyone else, but I did get dropped by this lady on an e-bike, and it felt like I was barely moving. I went slower than when I went to go pick up my packet and registration a few days earlier with a backpack on. But I still got to the top, I finished, and I'm proud of that, even if it was 63rd. Not anything that I came here for, but it was still an awesome day out. Thanks for watching.